Millionaire grabs janitor's throat in parking lot, unaware she had military past that would end him. Welcome back, my amazing online family. We're diving deeper into a story that challenges our perceptions and reveals the incredible strength people carry within. Remember, the world is full of hidden stories, and sometimes the quietest person holds the most profound power. As we continue, think about this. What assumptions do we make about others based solely on their outward appearance, and what profound truths might we be missing? Now, let's get right back into the narrative, starting with an even more enticing hook that sets the stage for the inevitable clash. He thought her silence was submission, her uniform a sign of weakness, until his hand clamped around her throat, and in her eyes he saw not fear, but the cold, calculating glint of a warrior he had just gravely underestimated. The silence of the deserted corporate parking garage was Anya's sanctuary, a canvas for the quiet choreography of her work. She moved with an almost unsettling grace for someone pushing a heavy cleaning cart, her worn uniform a stark contrast to the gleaming chrome and polished concrete. Every sweep of her mop, every spray of cleaner, was precise, methodical, a discipline that hinted at a past far more structured than her present. Her eyes, shadowed by fatigue but sharp with an unyielding vigilance, constantly scanned her surroundings, a habit ingrained deeply long before she traded a rifle for a dustpan. She existed on the periphery, a phantom of efficiency, carefully tending to the forgotten spaces, her deepest longing to simply remain unseen, to keep the ghosts of her past firmly locked away. Across town, atop a skyscraper that pierced the clouds, Victor Sterling paced his opulent office, his jaw tight, radiating an almost palpable fury. His driver was late, a 5-minute delay, and in Victor's world, even a second wasted was an unforgivable sin. Power was his native tongue, wealth his shield, and the world, in his estimation, existed solely to bend to his will. He was a man accustomed to commanding, to instantaneous gratification, and any deviation from his meticulously planned existence ignited a volatile storm within him. He saw people as tools, obstacles, or stepping stones, and currently the universe felt like a defiant obstacle, its insolence about to be met with the full force of his unbridled wrath. All right, my beloved online family, take a deep breath because we're about to witness the moment everything changes. This is where the story truly ignites, and the hidden depths of our characters will begin to reveal themselves. As you read this pivotal act, ponder, when pushed to our absolute limit, what surprising, raw emotions or instincts surface within us that we never knew existed? Let me know your reflections in the comments below. The distant screech of tires finally pierced Anya's carefully constructed bubble of routine. Victor Sterling's sleek obsidian sedan skidded into the executive parking spot, closer than usual, its tires just kissing the freshly scrubbed yellow line. As he burst from the car, his face a mask of barely contained rage, his eyes sharp and predatory, immediately fixated on Anya's cleaning cart, which was momentarily blocking a portion of the aisle near his car. "Are you blind, woman?" he barked, his voice echoing too loudly in the cavernous space. "Move that damn cart! I don't have all day for your incompetence!" Anya straightened slowly, her hand still gripping the mop handle, her gaze meeting his without flinching. "I'm almost done, sir," she replied, her voice calm, utterly devoid of the deference he expected. "It will be clear in a moment." Her composure seemed to infuriate him further. He strode towards her, his expensive suit bristling with indignation, his face contorted. "A moment? My time is worth more than your entire miserable existence." Before she could react, his hand shot out, not pushing the cart, but seizing her by the throat, pressing against her windpipe. The air instantly hitched in her lungs, but her eyes, wide and suddenly alight with a dangerous primeval fire, locked onto his. It was a gaze that promised not submission, but an awakening. A silent war had just been declared, not in the quiet hum of the garage, but in the terrifying, immediate space between them. For Victor, it was a display of dominance. For Anya, it was a trigger, tearing open old wounds and unleashing a force he couldn't possibly comprehend.
Whoa, that was intense, wasn't it? The air feels thick, even reading it. What are your initial reactions to that moment, my online family? The millionaire's aggression? Anya's unexpected response? What did you feel? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Victor's grip on Anya's throat lasted only a few agonizing seconds, but the imprint of it, both physical and emotional, lingered. He released her abruptly, as if burned, his own breath catching as Anya stumbled back a step, massaging her neck, her eyes still holding that unsettling, unblinking intensity. "Watch where you're going next time," he muttered, his voice lacking its previous conviction, a tremor of uncertainty now underlying his bluster. He quickly ducked into his car, the roar of the engine a desperate attempt to drown out the lingering image of her gaze, to erase the uncomfortable feeling that he had not, in fact, asserted dominance, but provoked something ancient and dangerous. He rationalized it away, just an overreaction to a frustrating day, a minor incident with an inconsequential employee. His world couldn't be challenged by a janitor. The thought itself was absurd. He sped out of the garage, leaving tire marks on the same clean floor Anya had just tended, eager to escape the prickle of unease that had settled deep within him. Anya stood motionless for a long moment, the burning sensation in her throat a cruel echo of a past she'd fought desperately to bury. Her hands clenched, then unclenched, a silent battle raging within her. Every fiber of her being screamed for retaliation, for the swift, decisive action that had once been her second nature. The years of discipline, of suppressing the warrior beneath the civilian, threatened to unravel. She fought against the surge of adrenaline, against the vivid flash of combat scenarios that flickered behind her eyes. Not here, not now. The instinct to strike, to neutralize the threat was overwhelming, but the consequences, the loss of this quiet, safe life, held her back. She took a slow, deliberate breath, forcing herself to focus on the faint scent of floor cleaner, on the steady thrum of the building's ventilation. She had to resist the easy path, the brutal efficiency she was trained for. But the seed of something else, something cold and strategic, had been planted, replacing the desire for invisibility with a growing resolve for quiet retribution. That internal struggle is palpable, isn't it? Both Victor's frantic denial and Anya's disciplined resistance show just how profoundly that brief, violent encounter impacted them. What are your thoughts on their immediate reactions? Do you think either of them can truly resist what's been set in motion? My amazing online family, the tension is building, isn't it? Victor had barely settled into his executive office, still trying to shake off the lingering sense of unease from the parking garage, when his assistant, a perpetually flustered young woman named Chloe, tentatively knocked. "Mr. Sterling, security just called. They'd like you to come down to the office. Something about an incident." Victor's jaw tightened. An incident? With whom? Chloe wrung her hands. "The janitor, Anya, and a complaint from one of the night shift supervisors who reviewed the camera footage." The bottom dropped out of Victor's stomach. He tried to project annoyance, but a cold dread began to coil. This wasn't going away. He rose, adjusting his tie, forcing a look of indignant authority as he headed towards the elevators, his mind racing for an angle, a way to dismiss this nuisance. When Victor arrived at the security office, the air was thick with an oppressive stillness. And there she was. Anya sat on a hard plastic chair, her back straight, her hands clasped calmly in her lap. Her uniform, once again, made her seem almost invisible, yet Victor couldn't tear his eyes from her. Her presence filled the small room, a silent accusation. The security chief, a burly man named Officer Miller, gestured between them. "Mr. Sterling, Miss Petrova, thank you for coming. We just need to get your statements regarding the incident in the parking garage." Anya simply nodded, her gaze neutral, offering nothing. Victor, bristling with indignation, took the chair furthest from her, a chasm of unspoken conflict between them. The forced proximity was unbearable. Each breath Anya took, a silent challenge. Each glance Victor gave her, a flicker of frustrated contempt. They were trapped, two opposing forces in a neutral zone, their raw emotions slowly beginning to seep through the professional facade.
The tension in that small security office must be thick enough to cut with a knife. How do you think Victor and Anya are truly feeling, trapped in that space together? What do you anticipate will happen as they're forced to confront the incident? The air in that security office is charged, and now we're about to peel back a layer of Anya's carefully guarded past. This is where Victor might start to truly understand the depth of his miscalculation. Officer Miller, oblivious to the simmering tension, cleared his throat. "So, Miss Petrova, can you describe what happened from your perspective?" Anya took a slow breath, her gaze briefly flicking to Victor before settling on a spot on the wall behind Miller. "I was cleaning, as usual. Mr. Sterling arrived, agitated about his driver. He then approached my cart, and then me." She paused, her voice unwavering, but a subtle tremor in her left hand, now resting on her knee, betrayed a deeper struggle. Just then, a harsh, unexpected clang echoed from the hallway outside, a janitor's bucket being dropped, sending a metal echo through the office. Anya's head snapped towards the sound, her body instantly tensing, eyes narrowing, posture shifting minutely into something defensive, almost predatory. It was a movement so swift, so instinctive, it was barely perceptible, yet utterly alien to a janitor. For a fleeting second, the bland office dissolved. Anya was back in a dusty, sun-baked landscape, the clang of the bucket transforming into the sharp metallic crack of a bullet casing hitting the ground. She saw the familiar faces of her unit, heard the urgent whispers, felt the unforgiving weight of her gear. The suddenness, the unexpected threat, the need for immediate, decisive action, it all flooded back in a dizzying wave. Her breath hitched. When the office snapped back into focus, she was still sitting, but the subtle tremor in her hand was now more pronounced. Victor, who had been impatiently drumming his fingers, froze. He hadn't seen the memory, but he'd seen her reaction. The sharp, almost violent focus in her eyes, the instantaneous physical shift. It wasn't the startled jump of a civilian. It was the instinct of someone trained for conflict. A cold knot formed in his stomach. This woman, the quiet janitor he'd so easily dismissed, was not what she seemed. The realization was unsettling, a dark premonition that something far more complex than a mere assault charge was at play. Officer Miller, seemingly oblivious to the unspoken exchange that had just passed between Anya and Victor, continued to take down notes, his pen scratching against paper. The brief jarring moment had passed, but its impression lingered. Anya, feeling Victor's gaze, subtly straightened, forcing her breathing back into its quiet rhythm. She focused on the faded picture on Miller's desk, a smiling young girl holding a fishing rod, dwarfed by a huge, grinning fish. A flicker of a wistful smile touched Anya's lips, almost imperceptible. "Good catch," she murmured, a rare, soft sound. Miller looked up, surprised but pleased. "My daughter. First time she ever reeled one in herself." He beamed, pointing to a detail. "Look at her grip, though. Strong, like she knows what she's doing." Victor, still processing Anya's earlier, almost violent response to the clang, found his eyes drawn to the picture, too.
He saw the genuine, unforced warmth in Anya's fleeting smile, a humanity that contradicted the icy precision he'd witnessed moments before. A strange, uncomfortable flicker of regret stirred within him. For a moment, the millionaire and the janitor ceased to exist. There were just two people observing a shared, simple joy. "She looks proud," Victor found himself saying, the words escaping before he could censor them, a surprising gentleness in his tone. Anya read his gaze then, and for the first time there was no hostility, no judgment, only a shared, silent acknowledgement of something universal. It was a fleeting truce, a fragile thread woven between them by a child's triumph, a tiny, almost invisible crack in the wall of their conflict, where a sliver of peace, even understanding, seemed possible. The air in the room, for just a breath, felt a little less suffocating. That fragile moment of connection, however brief, truly made us wonder if redemption was possible. But in every emotional story, there's often a moment where everything breaks apart. The brief, unexpected truce shattered when Officer Miller finally finished his notes and loaded the security footage onto a large monitor. The harsh glow filled the small office, illuminating the raw truth of Victor's actions. There it was, Victor, agitated, shouting, then the unmistakable lunge, his hand clamping around Anya's throat.
The image, stark and unforgiving, played in agonizing slow motion. Victor watched, his face draining of color, the fleeting regret he'd felt replaced by a tidal wave of shame and incandescent rage. He saw himself, a brute, captured for all to see. The small moment of shared humanity over the fishing photo evaporated, replaced by the burning humiliation of exposure. He couldn't stand it. "This is ridiculous!" Victor roared, lunging forward to try and switch off the monitor, his carefully constructed composure crumbling. "This is a setup! She provoked me! You think I would just do that to some nobody janitor?" He spun on Anya, his eyes blazing with a desperate, self-preserving fury. "You planned this, didn't you? You wanted to make a scene, to shake me down?" His words, laced with venom and a profound sense of betrayal, cut through the air like a knife. Anya, who had watched the footage with a grim, emotionless detachment, flinched, not from fear, but from the sudden, vicious unfairness of his accusation. Her brief, almost imperceptible softening towards him vanished instantly, replaced by a cold, resolute clarity. His desperate denial, his immediate leap to blame, confirmed everything she'd suspected about his character. "I merely stated what happened," she said, her voice now flat, devoid of any warmth. "The camera shows the rest." Her simple, factual statement, delivered with an almost clinical detachment, seemed to enrage him further. "You think you can just blackmail me, Anya? You think I don't know who you are, what you are? A grunt, a nobody." The cruel words, meant to diminish her, instead solidified her resolve. The fragile connection, built on a child's smile, had not only broken, but had been pulverized into dust, leaving behind a chasm of resentment and a renewed, steely determination. She looked at him then, not with anger, but with the cold, assessing gaze of a strategist. The time for resistance was over. The destruction of that fragile bond was absolute. Victor's pride and cruelty have pushed Anya past her breaking point, activating the hidden warrior within. Now, each must face the consequences of that shattering moment alone. In the following days, the repercussions hit Victor with a force he hadn't anticipated. A formal complaint was filed, not just by Officer Miller, but by Anya, a concise, clinically detailed account that left no room for his bluster. His lawyers, accustomed to sweeping away minor inconveniences, found themselves grappling with damning security footage and an unyielding victim. Board members at his company, wary of bad press and potential lawsuits, began to distance themselves, their carefully cultivated smiles replaced by cold, calculating stares.
Victor paced his penthouse, a caged lion, the walls of his empire suddenly feeling constricting. He could fight this, deny, obfuscate, but the cost was mounting. He saw Anya's face in his mind, not the meek janitor, but the woman with eyes that had seen battle, eyes that held an unwavering, terrifying resolve. He faced a choice: continue his aggressive denial, which threatened to unravel his entire public image, or offer a concession, a settlement, to make her disappear. But even the thought of capitulating to a nobody janitor chafed at his immense pride, making the choice a bitter, almost unbearable pill to swallow. His reputation, his very identity as an unyielding titan, hung in the balance. Anya, meanwhile, moved with a renewed sense of purpose. The shattered encounter had stripped away the last vestiges of her desire for invisibility. The pain of Victor's accusation had been a catalyst, reigniting a fire she thought long extinguished. She spent hours in quiet contemplation, reviewing files, making calls, her old military network, dormant for years, now softly humming back to life. She wasn't seeking revenge in the conventional sense, not a physical confrontation, but justice, precise, strategic, and irrefutable. The legal route was a start, but she knew his kind. They bought their way out. Anya's choice was not about money. It was about balance, about ensuring that arrogant power did not crush the vulnerable without consequence. She decided not to just pursue the complaint, but to delve deeper, using the same meticulous intelligence and strategic thinking she'd once applied to combat missions. Her past, once a burden she sought to hide, was now her sharpest weapon, wielded with a terrifying calmness. The quiet janitor was gone, replaced by a ghost of the soldier she once was, ready to execute a meticulous, non-violent, but utterly devastating campaign.
Weeks bled into months. The incident in the parking garage became the catalyst for Victor Sterling's spectacular downfall. Anya, using her meticulously re-engaged network, hadn't just pursued the assault complaint. She had quietly, surgically exposed a pattern of corporate malfeasance, unethical business practices, and systematic intimidation that had festered beneath Victor's carefully polished facade for years. The evidence, presented anonymously but with irrefutable precision, drew the attention of regulatory bodies and investigative journalists. One by one, his carefully constructed empire began to unravel. Board members, facing their own legal repercussions, swiftly voted him out. His assets were frozen, his reputation in tatters, and the once unyielding titan found himself facing not just civil suits, but the looming threat of criminal charges. He was stripped bare, left with nothing but the echo of his own arrogance. One crisp autumn morning, Victor, a shadow of his former self, sat hunched in a crowded courthouse waiting room, awaiting yet another hearing. He caught a glimpse of himself in the reflective glass of a trophy case, a man whose tailored suit now hung loose, his eyes hollowed by stress. The air was thick with the hushed murmurs of lawyers and plaintiffs. Then the double doors swung open, and Anya walked in. She wasn't in her janitor's uniform. She wore a simple, well-fitting charcoal suit that subtly emphasized the lean strength of her frame. Her hair, usually pulled back in a severe bun, was softer, framing a face that still held vigilance, but now also a profound sense of peace. Their eyes met across the room, and for Victor it was a chilling echo of that day in the parking lot. The same unblinking intensity, but now devoid of anger, replaced by a quiet, unwavering confidence. He saw not a janitor, but a force, a woman who had meticulously dismantled his world not with a weapon, but with intellect and an unbreakable will. She gave him no triumphant smile, no condescending nod, just a steady, knowing look that communicated a truth more devastating than any shouted accusation. He had gravely underestimated her, and the cost was everything. Anya walked past him without a word, her stride purposeful, heading towards her own legal team. She was no longer seeking anonymity. She had found a new path, leveraging her unique skills and insights to advocate for others, working with a nonprofit dedicated to exposing corporate abuses against vulnerable employees. The scars of her past were still there, but they no longer defined her as a victim. They were the etchings of a survivor, a strategist, a quiet warrior who had finally found her true purpose. The parking lot incident hadn't ended her, it had freed her. As Victor was called into the courtroom, facing the grim reality of his shattered life, Anya felt a profound sense of completion. Justice, for her, was not about revenge, but about balance. About the powerful facing consequences and the underestimated finding their voice, their power, and ultimately a love for the empowered self they had become. Wow, what an ending! Anya found her love at last, not in a romantic partner, but in the rediscovery of her own strength, her purpose, and the unexpected justice she carved out. Victor faced a devastating unexpected loss, a direct consequence of his actions. Thank you for joining me on this emotional journey, my online family. If this story touched you, if it made you rethink assumptions about people, or if you simply enjoyed the ride, please like this video, subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. And remember, sometimes the quietest people hold the greatest power.